See here. 3, 2, 1. Showtime. Hey there, everybody. Coach Mark here. Happy Sunday. Let's go ahead. We're going to knock out a quick extemporaneous live. Today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about bodybuilding principles, means, and methods that, just lessons overall that I think strongman athletes could really afford to learn from the bodybuilding crowd. Now, we all know about power building, but what is it if it's strongman in bodybuilding? Is it bodyman or strong building? Regardless, either portmanteau is absolutely terrible. They both sound ridiculous. But I do feel that strongman athletes, by and large, would benefit from actually stealing more from bodybuilders than they would powerlifters. As weird as it is to say, let's not lose the plot here. Obviously, they are different sports. They have different long-term goals. But some of the means make a lot of sense to converge upon. Because if you look at bodybuilding training, in essence, if you're going hyper-reductionist, these bodybuilders, they're striving to get as strong as possible through extended range of motions for repetitions. This is sort of a reliable proxy for overall muscle development, right? Now, if we look at a strongman athlete, what is the goal? To be strong for reps, for singles, across multiple positions and multiple implements, while you're fatigued and while you're fresh. Whereas powerlifting is all about the expression of strength via the 1 repetition maximum. So if we're just looking at it from a hyper-reductionist standpoint with these 3 sports, I do think strongman would benefit to steal more from the bodybuilders. And here's a few things when we talk about stealing that are worth stealing, yeah? Number 1, rest pause training. I am a huge proponent of rest pause training for the strongman athlete. I've used it on deadlifts. I've used it on accessory movements to great success. It's just a really good all-around option. And for those of you unfamiliar, the entire idea here is you'll just take a weight that you can do for however many reps. You'll do max quality reps, rest 20 to 40 seconds, then do another effort or micro set of max quality reps, rest 20 to 4 seconds, do it one more time. That's 3 efforts, and that equals 1 rest pause set. Generally, I like to extend that out to 5 efforts per rest pause set with only 1 rest pause set. And if you're someone who likes to, count total sets, 1 5-effort rest pause set is probably equivalent to roughly 3 straight sets. The 5 rest pause method, I stole that from Steve Shaw. He calls that the bulldozer method, and that's from Massive Iron. So check him out. One of my best mentors. Just a great guy all around. But yeah, 5 efforts with 30 seconds rest. I really, really like this for isolation work in particular, like tricep press downs, lateral raises, face pulls, incline curls, movements such as that. Another great variation that I've done in the past is I'll have people work to a heavy 3 to 6 rep max, for example, on a deadlift, and then drop down to 80% of that and do a 3 effort rest pause with that weight. And the reason why in particular I think this is useful is if we look at strongman events, you're doing max reps for time, and that rest pause training teaches you how to not only gut out reps when they're important, but how to mentally reset and physically reset even after you hit what you think is your limit. If you hit 6 hard reps but take 20 seconds, you can probably squeeze out 1 or 2 more, and that's incredibly valuable for the strongman athlete when you're trying to move up the chart and get more points across a multi-event show. Now, another bodybuilding approach that I really like here is 8x8. This is Vince Gironda's Honest Workout. So it's a weight that you could normally do for a straight set of 15 to 20 reps, and you're going to do 8 sets of 8 with it with a decreasing rest every week. You're going to start with 30 seconds rest. Every week you drop 5 seconds. And once you can do a true 8x8 with a 15-second rest, it's time to go heavier. Again, this is a really good one for isolation accessories like curls, banded press downs, or face pulls, because certain movements, like especially, say, a lateral raise, it's hard to progress those linearly. This gives us a density-based progression, and density is an incredibly underrated training variable for the strongman athlete. We all know about adding reps per set or adding load per set. Those are your basic 2 double progressions. But adding sets, for example, going from 5x5 to 6x5, is actually not a progression unless you perform a greater amount of work in the same or reduced amount of time, in which case now we're actually driving adaptations. Just tacking on sets is not as valuable if we don't have some sort of time element to it. Now, don't get it twisted. Obviously, you still need to rest adequately between your max effort lifts, but for isolation, it shouldn't take you 5 minutes between sets of curls. So these are some good ways to just help inject a little more oomph into your training in that regard. And then, one thing really worth talking about is nutrition. Bodybuilders work hard. They perform lots of volume, but they also understand that training requires quality fuel. I mean, the era of the 10,000 calorie mukbang, YouTube diet for strength athletes is probably on its tail end, if not over, and thank goodness for that. And in all reality, most of those guys weren't eating like that when they were performing at the top level. It was to get clicks. I mean, you don't need to live off chicken, rice, and broccoli, but at day's end, eat like an adult. You know exactly what that means, so let's be honest there. So that's just a few things that I think the strongman athlete could stand to steal from the bodybuilding crowd. Work density, bodybuilding set extending methods such as rest pause, 8x8 method, a little more focused on nutrition, thinking about control of the weight, not just momentum, especially in our isolation movements, When it's our big, heavy compounds, a little oomph, a little power, that's A-okay. But if we're really trying to maximize the muscle building response, it can be worth to slow down and think about that mind-muscle connection on something like a lateral raise in particular. But that's just some food for thought. Now, there were a few random questions I got from Instagram as well. First one was my thoughts on front versus back load safety squat bar dip jerks. And on this one, it's pretty gosh darn simple. If you are looking for log transference, you'll want to do them from the front because it's an anteriorly loaded movement. And using the SSB for it just makes it really wonky and unstable. However, if we're doing them from the back, I'll be honest, I wouldn't even bother using an SSB at that point. I would just use an axle or a barbell to help better emulate the Flintstone lift. And if we are looking at dip jerk variations to carry over to a barbell push press or an axle, then you should be using the barbell or axle, in my opinion. You could make the argument for the back-loaded SSB dip jerk as a way of kind of sparing the shoulders and upper back. But personally, I'd rather just use the closer implement there. As far as addressing low back weakness, I'd actually have to say before we diagnose anything as low back weakness, we need to see what the various lifts look like, if the low back is actually the limiter, or if, more likely, it's the upper back is not strong enough, so then the lower back has to take over, and thus it's sort of a mirage where, yeah, the low back is tight and tired, but it's not because it's weak, it's because your body's going, hey, my upper back isn't strong enough to, stay in position on this deadlift, so we're just going to put all the weight into our low back. When we fail on a lift, at least the kind of the less technical lifts, in my observation, our body is trying to move us into a position where it's easier for it to do it. So whatever muscles it's favoring when our form breaks, those are probably stronger muscles. So we need to find ways to build ourselves to hold the positions that we need to be in. But if we can say verifiably it is indeed a low back weakness, back extensions, snatch grip back extensions, planks, ab wheel, good mornings, just really all movements that we know about is going to do what we need to do there. But I would strongly wager that it's probably an upper back issue before it's a lower back issue. As far as belt squats, I like them. They're a great movement. I've done them on and off. I personally stopped doing them just because they never felt really good on my back and hips. Part of that, though, was I did have one of those lever arms, and it just never felt right, no matter how much I tried, and I couldn't load enough weight on it. So for me personally, if I had access to a true belt squat machine, I'd like to try them again. I do a variation of them with some of my clients in person where we just have a couple plyo boxes and load up a weight belt. They seem to really like it. It's just one that I personally, for me, do not bother with because I don't want to deal with the setup and breakdown. But, if I can find a nice, cheap, compact belt squat apparatus, I'm definitely open to running it back. And did I watch the Rogue Invitational? Quite honestly, no, I did not. Yesterday, after announcing at the powerlifting competition as well as, overseeing my two athletes competing, I just wanted to be home and relax. It's fun to watch strong woman and strong man, obviously, but it's also one of those things I wanted to shut my brain down and just relax and breathe. So I did not watch it. I'll probably get around to watching it down the road. Also, big shout out to Inez Cadisquillo. She is the GOAT emergent. She did it. She won the Rogue. We love her. Make sure to hit her up. Give her a big congratulations over on Instagram. Also, she is a fellow coach with Strongman Institute. So she's just a really good all-around human being. So yeah, congrats, Inez. You rock. But that really wraps up the live today. Hope you folks are having a good one. I'm probably going to try and start scheduling these lives on a more regular basis so I can actually get some community interaction rather than just me yapping at my webcam. But that'll do it for today. You folks have a good rest of the day. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, hit me down in the comment box below. Best ones are ones I will turn into videos.